Welcome to the Colour Time podcast. I am your host, Vincent Taylor. This is the podcast where we speak with professionals who work with colour. Very often on the show, I'm chatting to folks within the film and television industry because of my background as a colourist. But the goal of this podcast was to speak to people in all sorts of disciplines who work with colour. And today we're going to do that. Today we're chatting to an amazing painter, Anna Evans. Anna is based in New Zealand. She works with beautiful, beautiful colour. Check out the show notes that'll link to her work. But you're going to love this conversation. Let's go.
Take your seats because the hourglass is about to turn. We are entering the world of the micro podcast. Explore the craft, creativity, and science of professionals who use color to tell stories. Welcome to The Color Timer with Vincent Taylor.
Anna, hi. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I should say kia ora. Because I actually grew up in New Zealand, but you are a New Zealander, but you're not a New Zealander. What's your background?
Yes. I was born in Rochdale, England, which is northern Manchester, and I migrated to New Zealand, Auckland area as well, when I was 11.
Yeah, so you're pretty much Kiwi now, right?
I feel like a Kiwi, but, I guess culturally, identity-wise, I'm a migrant, long history of migrants.
Long history of migrants.
Polish blood that migrated all around the world. So, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna 2 seconds before we started the recording, I said that I have in the past sometimes started interviewing people and forgot to start my sand timer, and I almost forgot this time. So I'm gonna start it. Are you ready for the game show to begin? Here we go. Turn it over.
Yeah.
Now, I discovered you, or I kind of actually, my wife sent me a video of something you had done. You were an artist, you're a painter, and she showed me this really cool video you did talking about primary colours. Now, primary colours are red, green, and blue. Red, green, and red, yellow, and red, yellow, and blue. I'm thinking of video. See, I did it already. But you're saying, you're saying no. You're saying you got a different opinion.
No, I'm saying the primary colours are cyan, yellow, and magenta, and they're the subtract of primary colours. So the primary colours you just first mentioned, red, green, and blue, are the additive primary colours, and the ones that we were taught in primary school was red, yellow, and blue. And they're the ones I dispute.
So tell me about that. Why?
Okay, so I guess this all started way, way, way back in time when I was probably about 4 or 5, and we were learning primary colours at school, and the teacher gave us the red, the yellow, and the blue, and told us that we can make green with blue and yellow, and we could make green, and we could make orange with red and yellow, and we could make orange, and she told us that we could make purple with blue and red, but that's not what happened, because, she had probably given us a warm red, a vermilion or something, and a warm blue, and so when they mixed together, they made this kind of like, almost, I would say it would be like a more darker brown version of what I'm wearing, like a kind of deep maroon, burgundy, brown, dried blood colour. Yep. So I was never very happy with that, and I always wanted to make those really vibrant pinks and purples that we get. And then years passed, I learnt a bit more as I got older about painting and mixing colours, and then I was introduced to a teacher that showed us that if we used a cold red and a warm red, the cold red and the cold blue would give us something closer to a purple, but it still wasn't quite right. And then I started, by that stage I was about 15 or 16, and I was looking up on the internet all about colour, and my dad, who happened to teach science, had one of those, I guess they're like slit things you shine the light through, and then I found out all about red, green and blue, and how the secondary colours of red, green and blue are cyan, yellow and magenta, and how that related to print. So I all went through that process. And then I found out that, yeah, sure enough, all the colour printers are cyan, yellow and magenta.
Oh, my gosh,
and it
what
made
a journey.
Perfect sense from there. that if we just go and get magenta and blue, we can make beautiful purples. So I managed to get some paint, and sure enough, I was able to paint purples and pinks, which is what I had always
what was
wanted to do.
What was the thing that you, was that like a kaleidoscope, you mean, or what was that you're saying your dad had?
No, so in the physics department, and they have like I think it's called a slit thing. Basically, you shine light through to see the light waves, and I guess they're waves. And the light shines through, and when you mix the colors up, you can even do it with, like, if you get 3 torches with red, green, and blue light and combine all the light together, it will show the white, because all the light mixed. You'll know that's your field. And then you get like red and blue, and it will give you magenta, and then you get red and green, and it'll give you yellow. So in light, that's how it works. And so what's happening is that the secondary colors, when they're mixing, is making the pigment primary colors. So they're kind of inside out versions of each other.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
And I think it's to do with because how light bounces off an object. So when the sun's shining down and we're seeing something that I guess to us appears green, what's happening is it's absorbing all of the stuff that makes it magenta, and that light's bouncing back.
Yeah.
And it becomes green. So I think that's why they work inside out of each other. But the same thing happens with subtractive primary colors. So when we mix cyan and yellow, we get green. And when we mix yellow and magenta, we get red or orange, depending on how we balance it out. And then between magenta and cyan, we get blue, as we know it, like that kind of ultramarine.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I guess we call it.
Yeah. Now,
Yes.
see, I told you this would go fast. I'm already looking at the sound time and going, I've got so many more questions. It to me, at least, it speaks volumes that as a little girl, you kind of went, hang on, that's not right, or at least it planted a seed or put a little splinter in there where you just went, that's not what it should be, or whatever, and you were,
it's not the right color. No, and you'd get teachers that would say, mix a bit of white in it, and be like, okay, you mix a bit of white in it, and then it just was like a mauvey beigey brown. It wasn't purple. You know what I mean? So, and I was always one of those. I was a bit like, I'm the emperor new clothes child that's like, no, miss, that ain't right. That's not purple. This is brown. What? That's not purple. And then I'd obviously
oh my gosh, they would have hated you, right?
I was one of those like know-it-all kids, I guess, to be honest.
But you, whatever was in you to keep exploring that. I mean, I've introduced you as a painter, and oh my gosh, are you a painter? I love your work. It's so, and here's the thing about your paintings that I love so much. They're really, really bright and colourful, but they're not as well. It's this really, it's really hard for me to articulate.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you, I guess.
I hope that was a compliment. No, it was supposed to be.
Yeah, no, I'll take it. It's an interesting thing. My work has definitely gone through a big transition period since I had my little boy, just because time is super condensed and you don't have as much, and also just, I guess, matrescence, like when you become a mother, you sort of, it's like another adolescence in many ways. You just go through a change, I suppose, and I guess that reflects in my work as an artist a little bit, maybe.
You paint, your landscapes, but a lot of birds. What is it about the birds that draws you in?
Well, that's again, that almost feels like a lifetime ago, because since I had my boy, I have been painting a few birds, but not as many. But a large body of my work was birds, and I don't know why I was drawn to birds for the longest time. I guess that was a sense of freedom.
Yeah.
And that there were all these birds that are bright coloured, and they're not really of a memory of me from when I was a small child, where they're those more browny kind of grey colours of UK birds. Like the colours in New Zealand are wildly different to where I come from as a child. Like Manchester's really industrial browns, greys. The sky itself is kind of more often than not dull. And when I arrived in New Zealand, it's like super bright and colourful, and there's all these crazy looking exotic trees, and I suppose the birds are kind of a way of capturing how I would view New Zealand before migrants like me came. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a land that didn't have mammals until humans arrived and brought them, apart from a bat. So I guess the birds are like the original owners of New Zealand.
Well, going back,
they're the ones that were here
going
first.
back a lifetime ago when I did do art history, and I remember studying. Don't ask me any names, but I remember studying some Kiwi painters, Europeans who came to New Zealand, and they were so struck by the quality of the light and the colours, and that really kind of changed the way that they painted, or at least what they explored. I mean, that sounds almost exactly like what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I guess it is, because, I mean, I obviously was 11, so I'm not coming at it from an adult viewpoint, but it has always stuck with me, the intensity of light when I arrived here. Like, I remember the first morning we woke up and it was an incredible sunrise. It was these beautiful pinks and oranges and these gradients of just like an explosion of magenta and orange. And it was just the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And I was like, whoa, so this is where we're living now. Oh, cool. This is amazing. And then later in the day, we went out and we went to Takapuna Beach, and it was just turquoise, the water. And I was like, whoa. Like, I thought that this was something from Treasure Island, because you'd see like
that's
the palms
fantastic.
And things. But it was, a lot different from where I came
I love
that
watching you as you're talking about color. You kind of light up yourself, and it's wonderful. It's really cool.
It's probably my most favorite thing to talk about or argue about.
Well, you said that you haven't been doing birds as much. So what have you moved on to another topic, or?
Yeah, my latest obsession actually has been gardens. Yeah, obsession. Gardens. And it all comes from, again, this is related to colour, a fascination with dahlias or dahlias. I believe they're actually supposed to be pronounced as dahlias.
Dahlias,
and so the way a dahlia grows, potatoes. So what I found out, and this is what made me obsessed with them, is when you plant a dahlia seed, you have no idea what colour it's going to come out or what shape. So I could get a seed from a red dahlia, and when I plant it, I don't know whether it's going to be a frilly double, they call them, or like a single with one row of petals. So it's completely a surprise. And so when you plant the seed, you have no idea what's going to come out, and then like between 70 and 90 days later, you've got this surprise flower. And so I just thought that's the coolest thing ever. I can plant hundreds of these things, and I'm going to have an explosion of random colors, and I don't know what they're going to be like. And so I did it for one season, and I just fell in love, and then I just started growing more and more and more. And then I just became obsessed with like crossbreeding dahlias, and then I was like, oh, dahlias are cool, and then there's all these other flowers, and so again, that's after I had my son, and I think I started doing that because when you're carrying because I carried my boy around, I was one of those mums that had the slings, and he was just always with me. So gardening was like this new creative outlet that I just fully threw myself into, and when I become obsessed with something,
you don't hold back. When you're approaching a painting, or when you're starting a painting, whether it be birds or the gardens, the plants, the flowers, do you have a sense already of the colours that are going to go into that, or do they come as you're painting?
That's interesting. So like I've got this work right here with me. This one I did as a speed painting. So one of the things I'm doing this year has been I really want to speed myself up and get more looser and fluid with how I paint. So I've been setting aside between an hour and 90-minute sessions a day to do some paintings. And basically, because that goes so fast, I have no choice but to just sort of like be intuitive and let it go. So this is based on one of those paintings, which was, I was just painting, and then I thought, I'll put some purple in there, and I'll make this, I'll do some Queensland's lace, and I'll put some blue asters and things like that in there, some salvia, and at that point it is, I think that purple will go real nice with this purple or this blue,
Right.
and so it becomes a bit about orchestrating, but I think it's a bit of both. Like I do kind of, like when they come onto a canvas, I know what they're going to be because I've thought about it before, but when they're in that first study stage, no, it's a bit more like
have a play, and see what kind of instinctually comes out. That's amazing. That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
It reminds me how I'm not even though there's a guitar behind me, I'm not a musician, but it reminds me of how musicians talk about, they've got their, especially jazz musicians, they start off with something structured, and then it kind of it turns into something else.
Yeah, like it's like something influences it. It's like you're responding to, you'll do something and then you've got to respond to it.
Wow.
And one part will inform the next part, and it just sort of builds from there. That's how I would. Yeah. It's probably quite like jazz, actually.
Yeah. And is it oil paint you use? Is that the medium that you use, or acrylic?
No, I'm using acrylic because, again, speed factor, time. I've got my little one around. I'd love to get back into oils. Like I used to paint with oils when I was at university. And so one day it's my dream when I finally get the shed studio properly kitted out so that I can do it safely and have things dry and away from a 4-year-old.
Of course.
Then
do you do you ever have to push yourself to paint, or is it the opposite? Like you just want to paint all the time? How does that work with your drive?
I want to paint all the time. Yeah. I want to paint all the time, and life gets in my way. That's how I'd put it. But the cool thing about being a mum is I have learnt to be less indulgent on one thing. Like I'm with my work, like because I put my first point of energy goes into him, and then everything else is from that. So that's what the speed paintings are about, is to get faster and looser, and just see where it takes me. Take off. Just go
folks who've watched or listened to the podcast know that I'm terrible at sticking exactly to the time, but the time has stopped. But I've got one more kind of question that I want to ask you. It's not a specific question, actually. It's more about, do you have a color that you kind of tend to avoid? Like I used to work with a guy on a show, and he just despised magenta, and he'd start to see magenta where there wasn't magenta. Is there a color like that, or the opposite, one that you always just gravitate to?
Well, that is interesting. I don't do it consciously, but I have noticed from my paints that the colors that I use least of is red or yellow, and it might be that because I use magenta instead of red, that I do. If I need a red, I will use it, of course, but I can also, I guess, mix something similar to a red with magenta and yellow. So it might be that it's red and yellow. Those two are probably least used. I think I'm more drawn to the magenta, blue, green, cyan side of the spectrum, I would say. At this point,
But
I don't hate any colours. I love all
speaking
colours.
of red, what did you think of the latest reveal for the King Charles portrait painting?
That's an interesting one. I feel like the artist knew the response that it would have. I do feel that. I feel like any artist who's using pinks and reds in such a bodily sense, it looks very internal, inside body fluid. I think that they knew how that would be provocative. I think it. Yeah, it's an interesting one. yeah, it to me, I mean, because when it looks war, it looks like war to me, but that's just because I view those colors and associate them with horror. Like if I was going to make a horror movie, it'd probably have a lot of those colors in it.
Yeah, I do.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So. And I feel like an artist would know that.
I wonder if the artist communicated that to. I wonder if they have to say, look, this is the style, or this is where I'm going to with this painting, or if they're just left alone to do their thing.
Yeah. I wonder that too. I mean, there's been some. I can't remember. There was some queen back in the day. Like last century. Yeah, and I believe that they weren't happy with portrait done of her, and they didn't even pay the artist. So I don't know. Maybe the artist was like, "Oh, well, I'll take a punt. I'll make it look kind of out there, and I'll at least have my name remembered."
It certainly got talked about.
Maybe.
Now, speaking of names being remembered, hopefully folks are going to check out your work, because I've totally loved talking to you, and I knew I would. I could tell by that first video I watched. I went, "Oh, you sound so interesting in the way that you get enthusiastic about things and you just don't stop." I love it. So thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Vincent. It's been
awesome.
Lovely
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna, thank you so much. You're amazing. That was a really good conversation, and I love your paintings. They are so beautiful. Thank you to my executive producer, MixingLight.com. There's a high chance that you're watching this or listening to this via their website, so you probably already know what they do. But if you don't, check them out. They can help you all things color. And thank you to you, the listener. Thanks you keep chiming in and you keep leaving really cool comments and asking some great questions. So please keep them coming. It's really, really awesome. And yes, again, you can get t-shirts. I know it's ridiculous, but people ask for them. I'll put a link in the show notes for that as well. You can get your very own Color Timer t-shirt and impress your friends. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
The Color Timer, a micro podcast experience.